Imagine dedicating your life to helping young women escape abuse, homelessness, and exploitation, and then being punished for doing it after speaking out against the government. That's exactly what happened to my next guest. HER Resiliency Center is a nonprofit that's been helping women in Baltimore and D.C. rebuild their lives. But when its founder, Natasha, started speaking out about how the state of Maryland was mismanaging victim assistance funds, the government didn't take it very well. According to a new lawsuit, the state retaliated, freezing her funding and forcing HER Resiliency Center to suspend critical services. Think about that for a moment. A women's empowerment organization punished for exercising free speech. This isn't about Maryland. It's about what happens when the state controls the purse strings, when the same bureaucracy that claims to empower women uses money as a weapon against the ones actually doing the work. Natasha says she's not just suing for reimbursement. She's standing up against the system that silences those who dare to question it. Joining me now is the founder of HER Resiliency Center, Natasha, to tell us exactly what happened, what she's fighting for, and why this case matters far beyond Maryland. Natasha, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's talk about what happened, what's happening now. But first, before we get into the actual lawsuit and how the state retaliated against you, tell us about HER Resiliency Center. When did it start and who does it help?
I started HER Resiliency Center in 2015 in Washington, D.C. We opened in 2016 and expanded to Baltimore, Maryland in 2019. HER serves young women 18 to 25 who've overcome a number of challenges and victimizations. Most women we serve have experienced more than 5 victimizations in their lifetime. Along with this, we provide intensive wraparound services, a street outreach team in 7 neighborhoods of Baltimore's hardest areas, and workforce development that helps women enter the construction trades through first a pre-apprenticeship with us and then union apprenticeship programs.
Okay, so these are young women, 18 to 25 years old, and they have been, they like, what kind of situation do they find themselves in? Like, who are you looking for when you're going and finding these 18 to 25-year-olds? What are they doing that makes you say you need us?
Well, the women we serve are all varied, but we have women who've aged out of foster care with no support, so they've experienced a lot of child abuse and neglect over their lifetime. We have women who have been sexually exploited through sex trafficking or survival-based sex work, women who have young moms, mostly women who are looking for a community and a different way of life. And something I left out a moment ago is we may have the type of services I explained, but really we help women become independent, tax-paying citizens that no longer take from the government or benefits, but rather putting back into the system. We really help transform their lives.
So you're trying to get them like off of assistance, welfare, things like that, get them into satisfying careers and building a better life for themselves.
Well, for example, our street outreach team in 2021, because this is a great story, we helped a woman exit the street. She was homeless, shooting heroin. She'd been locked in the basement by a John for a week, stripped of her clothes, told she wasn't pretty enough for the handcuffs. She had escaped through a mid-level window. And when I found her that day, because I'd been looking for her for a week, I took her to a treatment center right away. That was in 2021. She went for 5 months on a scholarship. Her kids have come back into her life. She's been working since she got out of treatment. And now she makes $80,000 a year working with a partner organization after living on the streets and shooting dope for 8 years.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys are doing amazing work. And it's a needed thing. I mean, just so that we can all understand, I mean, how much of the funding, what percentage would you say has been coming from the state versus, I don't know which other sources you would get?
So HER Resiliency Center is still very much government funded through contracts. These are reimbursement-based contracts where we have to spend the money to get the money. So we're hugely impacted by government funding and when the reimbursements by one specific agency, a state agency was, I don't know, 25% when but they have stopped reimbursing.
Okay, so tell us. So then that leads us into what's happening with this lawsuit. What happened that caused you to start speaking up against the agency, the government agency, and kind of give us a lead up, like what's happened.
There have been a few things. There have been a lot of things, actually. It started with them telling me that's not what a victim needs as a service provider, and
Like
not
what?
tights for a woman we had taken to treatment, who was beaten with a crowbar by a man trying to pimp her out. And we had taken her to treatment, and they questioned like tights and lollipops.
Why? So, but why? Okay, why did you give them tights and lollipops?
She didn't have any clothes. She had no clothes. She was escaping. Like, we picked her up, like she'd been hiding in bushes from him. We come in, pick her up, and go to a treatment center out of state with her. And the lollipops is because she wasn't going to be able to smoke, and there's a oral fixation. So
Right.
we wanted to provide her what she needed to be able to stay there.
Well, okay. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it seems like lollipops would help also with a drug addiction. I mean, anything that you can like do something, it's like gum or whatever,
Right.
like anything other than, right, like smoking or, yeah, okay, that makes sense to me.
And so
Um,
started there. Oh, excuse me.
no, go ahead. So that
It,
so they were scrutinizing all of your spending is what the state started doing.
yes. And then from there, it turned into they for FY25 or throughout the last couple of years, I've been advocating to legislators, even to the governor himself, with concerns about this state agency. And while some legislators made phone calls, nothing happened. And the governor kept brushing me off. He had me talking to one of his deputy chiefs of staff that, in fact, when I asked if he had read an email that I'd sent over, he said no. He's not in the habit of stepping on the necks of secretaries because they are appointed by the governor and voted on by the legislator. Where am I supposed to go from there?
Okay, so basically, so that I understand, so the agency, so you work on reimbursement. So you're not just given the funds and then you spend them how you want. You have to spend the money first and then justify your spending to the government. And then the government says, okay, yeah, that works. So here's your reimbursement for that.
Right. That is it.
Okay. And what percentage of the funding did they start to say, you know what, we don't think any of this is actually for victims or victim services or whatever?
Well, early in, let's say, September of last year, they told me that we only serve 45% of the women we serve are victims. Therefore, the other 55% are not. And we could only reimburse staff salary up to 45%. And this has not been the case for the previous years, in which we have demonstrated historically, we've had contracts with this agency for 5 years, that the women we serve are victims. And they pointed specifically to our street outreach team, saying that their most important need isn't victim recovery.
Mhm.
But they clearly don't understand what victimization looks like on the streets. And so they required me to have a match for that other 55%. And the more I criticized or the more I took it to different officials, the more calls the director got, the more she got irritated. Even with a statement by, like, the governor had shared a statement earlier in the year with one of my advisors that I was working on burning a bridge.
Okay, so of these, like, so they said 45% were victims. Let me just try to understand their perspective on this. So they're like 45% are victims, the other 55% are not victims. What did they give you a exact why one's a victim and one's not?
That's part of the lawsuit. So part of the VOCA Act, so this is VOCA funding, Victims of Crime Act. And part of this act is that you are to use a measurable tool to determine the percentage of victimization. And they didn't do that. They just told, or as far as I know, they just told me if I want to change my business model, they would re-examine things, but this is how it is. And, you know, Usually, I've never experienced this. A
Mhm.
cut in the amount of money you would get is more historical. Like, rather than 300,000, you'd get 200,000. But what they did with me was 45%, which meant I couldn't spend the money. I was hamstringed because I didn't have all the 55% for everything we needed to do.
Yeah. And they wanted you to change your business model to what?
Oh, I don't know. Just, I don't know. That's the thing, is like, if they're telling me the women on the streets who are being sexually exploited, I told you 2 stories already.
Yeah.
Like, if those women aren't victims, I don't know what they think is a victim.
Are they thinking like because I know you help a lot of women get off the streets, like who are into prostitution. Do they think that a prostitute is not a victim? That's what I'm kind of trying to get at is who do they count as a victim versus not? And they must have said something to you.
No,
They haven't said why.
they have not told me they've used the business model. They told me about street outreach, but that was the extent of it. And in fact, in 2024, we served 1,100 women through all of our programs, and 852 of them were engaged through street outreach. And I've already described the depth we go through with street outreach. And in all 852, we did victimization reports on them, and they all have multiple victimizations. Like, I started off sharing 5 or more.
Mhm.
Even the woman I told you about initially, who was locked in the basement by a John, she wasn't being trafficked. She was engaging in survival based sex work.
Okay. So she had become a prostitute.
Yes.
She needed money.
Yes.
And right. And a lot of women, fall victim to that. And you can always probably trace it back to their childhood, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it always comes back to something that had happened when they were younger.
Yes. Her mom was a crack addict, her dad a heroin addict. She had gotten a full ride scholarship to Penn State on academics. Like, it was incredible. And then, but like you said, something happens, and she didn't grow up with her parents. Like, there's a history, a trauma history that
Yeah.
occurs before something happens like that. And
Yeah.
so she had a partner who was a heroin addict, and that's where it started for her. And it was familiar because she had seen her parents.
So she kind of fell into that.
But then it made, even though she went in, like, it's survived, didn't have a trafficker, like a
Yeah.
third party by the definition of force, fraud, or coercion. She was definitely a victim.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
they might not have, but they might look at that and say that's not a victim. That scenario is not victim. And maybe that's
That
why they,
one of the things I'm starting to assess anyway is that they're stuck on what a victim is, like from the 90s, like domestic violence, white women in suburbs, and just kind of stuck there and not understanding urban Baltimore City and what it looks like to be victimized, and even the complex trauma, not to get too technical, but like everyday traumas that are happening in your home, like child abuse and a
right.
parent being beaten or something like that, that they have to escape from. And that carries on, and they have a likelier chance of being victimized, but also high risk lifestyles that lead to what we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you grow up in a home that gives you that you gain no confidence even in for yourself living in that home as a child, it's like, what do you expect is going to happen to you, to that person in adulthood? I mean, that's, maybe they want to categorize it as, well, no, you have to be like an actual victim where we can actually prosecute somebody. And you can't prosecute parents for just being assholes to their kids and instilling no confidence and treating their kids like crap or not paying any attention. I mean, I know you can't charge them with that necessarily, but it doesn't mean the person's not being a victim, even though you can't actually slap a legal, some sort of a crime onto it. There's still definitely a lot of parents that are really awful to their kids. And it's like, of course their kids are going to make choices that, they just don't have the confidence. They don't have the self-esteem, the self-worth, all those things that you need to go out in the world and make it in the world. And so,
Well, I'm sorry, Kim.
yeah, go ahead.
No, the thing is that the victimization reports that we use to collect background information on the women, includes child abuse. And this report came out of what VOCA tracks as victimizations. They said it wasn't their, like when they said street outreach, it's not their presenting issue that they need is victim services. But here's the thing, most of them don't know that they've been victimized.
Yeah.
When you grow up with people who've been like when you grow up with other kids getting beat or the parent, like that's normal.
Right. Like you
When
don't know
you
it's different. Yeah. You don't know that this isn't supposed to happen to you,
right, and
that
then
this
even
isn't
out
normal.
on, I apologize, I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
But even like when they're out on the streets, like they think they caused this. Even ending up with a trafficker, like I was told not to leave. I left anyway. I ran away from home. Now I'm here. And now I caused this. I have to get myself out of it, not recognizing that they don't have choice
Mhm.
because that is what traffickers will do. They will make it like
Yeah.
no one loves you. You're a whatever derogatory term now. No one's going to want to be with you. This is all your fault. You wanted this. And here, and they're like, okay, I guess I want this. And so they don't even know to ask for help sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So the state says to you, you know what, Natasha, we don't actually think you're helping victims, and we're cutting your funding by 55%. We're not giving you 55% of the funds.
It's not necessarily, Kim, that they cut 55%, is that they stopped reimbursing money that we spent of the 45%, in fact. There are two issues. One is the 55%, and the one is that they stopped reimbursing. Every time I would ask for help and it got back to the director, I got more scrutiny on my invoices. In
Okay.
fact, they asked me, is a job coach, they were like, we don't believe a job coach and a professional development coach are the same. It's like a title difference that they were scrutinizing my invoices. The more I did, the more I asked for help, the more they scrutinized, and then the more they changed. They kept
Okay.
moving the goalpost.
Yeah. And so now so they basically kept getting worse and worse and scrutinizing more and more every time you spoke up and said, "Hey, um, what's going on here?" And you made complaints to other departments, to the governor. You tried to get some help with this particular agency that you felt was not being fair.
Right.
And the more you spoke up to any other agencies or any other government people that you'd go to complain about this, you ended up just getting hit harder.
Yes. Like even one senator in the legislator in Maryland, state senator, asked for a memo. And I was later told that the director was really upset about being asked for this memo. Things like that. And so, and you could see it in the reflection of their scrutinization of my invoices, my reports. Um, every time I would ask for help, so it would be like, you get nothing.
Yeah.
And they didn't reimburse us $218,000, which for some places is not a lot of money, but we spent this money in good faith that they would pay us back. And because the prolonged process of getting the money, we've compiled extra bills that we didn't need to have, trying to fix what they have broken.
Hmm. So where are you at with this lawsuit right now?
We have filed. A lawsuit takes a long time, and that's the reality of it. And so we're hoping that through this process, the state will work with us and reimburse us what is owed, and then like what the cost of being owed this has been, because it will, waiting for a lawsuit to happen, we will end up closing our doors. We won't
Yeah.
make it that long because that'll be like a year away.
Hmm. Right. So what can people do to help?
If anybody wants to call the governor's office and tell him that, to get on this, like I would appreciate it. Donations, herresiliency.org.
Okay.
Just, I think calling legislators is also really important because our work is recognized and
Yeah.
we do a good job. And this is definitely like, it's a political game playing and silencing. And if they're not going to listen to us, they're not going to listen to the women we serve. And I want to go ahead.
Go ahead.
I also want to share that, like, The governor of Maryland and Baltimore City mayor, they talk about crime reduction. The reality is that we've been part of that solution.
Yeah.
We've been helping women get out of poverty so that there's not more dependence, and helping women, just exit certain situations. We've been part of that crime reduction. Even, when we started doing street outreach, one woman told us about 9 murders in a one neighborhood, and we reported those. But it's like, how they can tell us that they aren't victims is really a disgrace.
Yeah. Well, we wish you the best of luck in this lawsuit, in trying to get the state to do what's necessary. I mean, look, I think a lot of people watching will say, okay, Natasha, I mean, this is kind of what happens when you take state money. The state will, when you're reliant on the state, then the state gets to do what they want. And that's kind of I think a lot of people, say that's why we shouldn't take state money. But at the same time, I mean, who's going to donate? This is a group of people. There are people out there that, if we say, well, then you should just run on what? Donations? Okay, well, people would rather donate to puppies, and kittens than to women that are in prostitution or who have been victimized in some other way. And, this is why I think government funding for programs like this is important, because we cannot rely on just donations and the goodwill of people to donate, because people will pick certain causes at people tend to pick the same exact cause. Like I said, puppies, and they just continue donating to that rather than all of these other programs that are really truly beneficial for society. But then people are like, I don't know if I really need to, they just don't think about that group. And I think and that's why when the state decides, when we have a government, part of that is to help with these types of programs. And obviously, I think most of us would like to see women off the streets, women who have been harmed in some way or victimized in some way, thriving rather than just trying to survive. And certainly, this also cleans up the crime rate. So, I mean, it's a win-win, for everybody involved if the state continues to help with programs like these, rather than, like I said, just relying on the donation of people, because they're always going to go to the same causes over and over and over again. And those causes end up with a bunch of money. And these other causes that are so necessary end up with hardly anything, if anything at all. So, we wish you the best of luck in this lawsuit. Good luck in that. I do have the link down below to HER Resiliency Center. And also, definitely for people to call Governor Westmore, or to call the governor's office. Is that what you're wanting to?
Call the governor's office. Call the governor's office crime prevention and policy.
Yeah. Okay.
Make the calls, reach out, because we don't have the constituency to make these calls. The women we serve they're not there to make these kinds of calls. And that's why we need advocates.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Natasha, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.